Have you seen the new nutrient profiling system called Food Compass from Dr. Mazafarian and his colleagues at Tufts University? The idea is to provide an objective, bias-free, clear profiling system of healthy and unhealthy foods. Boy, did they miss the boat. I'm Dr. Brett Scher, the medical director of DietDoctor.com, and at first I gotta say, I was kind of excited for this because in general, I've got a high opinion of Dr. Mazafarian. I was excited for a up-to-date, latest science, objective analysis of food benefit and detriment, and a ranking system that was going to be clear, free of bias, and objective, and I guess I couldn't be more disappointed. Now, I've reached out to Dr. Mazafarian and invited him to come be a guest on my podcast so we can discuss this. Unfortunately, he declined. But hopefully we can get a little swell going because I'd love to hear his explanation of this. He is a respected scientist and clinician who's done very good work in the past, and I would love to hear him defend this because there are so many problems with this. So why don't we get started and just talk about it? So first, from what I can read on their website, the purpose of this was because they don't believe other nutrient profiling systems do a good enough job of sort of advising everybody what to eat. Now, here's what's interesting. They say these profiling systems are helpful for front of package labeling, for warning labels, for taxation, for company ratings, and more. But they wanted to create a better one. So they created this, what they call novel NPS, nutrient profiling system, called Food Compass, to incorporate a broader range of food characteristics and sort of up-to-date science. Now, here's another really interesting point that the Tufts University sort of publication to promote this says it's a nutrient profiling system developed over 3 years that incorporates cutting-edge science on how different characteristics of food positively or negatively impact health. I'd be really curious what the cutting-edge science is, because when you look at let's go through some of these numbers that are pretty shocking. First, all fruit gets the highest score of 100. Raspberries are 100. Watermelon is 100. Canned peaches are 97. Pineapple is 94. So fruit is so highly elevated. But the whole point here was to combine beneficial and harmful information and incorporate that. So what's the benefit of watermelon? What is watermelon giving us from a vitamin and a nutrient perspective that we need so desperately that we can't get elsewhere? I'm not really sure. It's mostly water. You could say it's not that harmful, but certainly in large amounts for someone with type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance, it could cause glucose elevations. For your average healthy person, I guess average is a bad word, for a healthy person who's not metabolic, doesn't have metabolic dysfunction, you could say it's not harmful. But why is it so high at 100? What does it give us that we otherwise lacking? And Cheerios at a 95. So here's the big thing. A big part of this profiling system is it's supposed to devalue processing, right? They mention throughout how processing knocks things down, and how the purpose of this is to not, play into the food industry and to provide a clear barrier between health choices and what food industry marketing portrays. But yet Cheerios, a completely processed food product full of wheat, again, without any real nutrients that you can't get elsewhere, listed at a 95. And then another one, still in the green zone, to eat as freely as you want, non-fat chocolate frozen yogurt and chocolate covered almonds. Chocolate everywhere, processed, packaged, in the green zone. And so how about something naturally occurring like ground beef? 26, way at the bottom in the red zone. Cheddar cheese, 28, way in the bottom in the red zone. Fried egg, 29. What's higher than those? Grape juice at 58, Lucky Charms at 60, and sweet potato chips at 69. Processed sugar, grape juice, Lucky Charms, higher than naturally occurring protein-containing foods. And that's the other thing. When you're talking about the beneficial, positive aspects of food, you have to incorporate protein. Protein is the most important macronutrient that we can get, that we can't live without. There's, well-established science about protein leverage hypothesis, about protein's contribution to lean muscle mass, to improved weight loss, to resting metabolic rate. And yet protein-containing foods are knocked down for sugar-containing, protein-absent foods, which really seems like an imbalance. And even more, peanut butter and jelly sandwich on white bread gets a 35, still higher than naturally occurring animal products. So I think it's clear there is a definite anti-animal food bias here. Now, is this latest cutting-edge science like that Tufts publicity piece shows? I mean, I guess if you consider nutritional epidemiology with healthy user bias, food frequency questionnaires, and tiny hazard ratios, if you call that cutting-edge science, but I would call that outdated, almost close to worthless, but not completely worthless science when it comes to nutritional epidemiology. So that's a real problem with this. And I had a very interesting discussion with Adele Height, a senior writer at Diet Doctor, who did her whole PhD thesis on the dietary guidelines. And she's clear, this is just an industry-friendly representation of the dietary guidelines. Now, that's so interesting because a lot of sort of the wording behind it was to be a barrier between people's choices and industry. But I mean, if you think about how industry could use this, look at these examples I just gave about the chocolate-covered almonds and the chocolate frozen treats and the processed foods ranking so much higher than natural foods. How could industry not just grab that and say, look, these are in the green or these are in the yellow, these are healthy based on this system, you should be eating more of these and less meat, less naturally occurring products, or naturally occurring foods, not products, actually foods. These other things are products. It seems to me like that would play right into industry's hands and marketing. And so Adele brought up another really good question. If they considered the ethical implications of putting this out and how it could be misrepresented and misunderstood by people thinking that these processed foods were therefore healthy and should be eating more of it. Unless that was their intention, and I really hope it wasn't. If they wanted to portray this as this is their ranking system based on what they believe to be true, based on old and weak science, then okay, then I guess they should market it that way. But to market it as objective and true and up to date, the most advanced science, and a barrier between people and industry, I think that's very misleading, unfortunately. And we can unpack things further. I mean, I think it's very clear how devalued and undervalued protein is. If you look at their chart about their domains and attributes with the FCS, what they call it, fiber and protein are considered together, as if fiber and protein are equivalent. So fiber is something that gives you no nutrition, but can help, with your blood sugar rises and can help with short-term satiety. And protein, which is the most important macronutrient, which is so important for nutrition, to lump them together and give them a 0.5 weight. I mean, it's so devaluing of the importance of protein that I just don't quite understand that. And it's equal to the role of phytochemicals. So phytochemicals are chemicals that come from plants, and we know so very little about if we really need them, if they really are beneficial in and of themselves. We know that people who eat vegetables and people who eat fruit tend to be healthier people. That's very different than saying we need these phytochemicals. There's no such thing as a phytochemical deficiency. There's no such thing as a phytochemical requirement. There is such thing as a protein deficiency and a protein requirement. And we very well know the dangers of not eating enough protein. So to equate protein with phytochemicals seems way off base to me. Also, when they talk about food-based ingredients, at the very bottom are red or processed meats lumped together. Red or processed meats lumped together. Now, we can even argue whether processed meats, how dangerous those are based on the weak science, but red meat to be lumped with processed meat when almost every study shows that there's a differentiation in their association with increased risk, they should absolutely be treated separately. Oh, and by the way, all those other products I talked about with the Cheerios and the chocolate-covered almonds and the chocolate frozen desserts all rank higher than a skinless chicken breast. One of the best sources of protein, relatively low fat, protein per calorie is outstanding. How can that be considered less healthy than chocolate almonds? That I have such a hard time with that. And of course, getting away from sort of the misrepresentation of what's healthy and what's not, we also have to consider the whole dietary pattern. And we have to consider hunger, satiety, metabolism, enjoyment. Those are things that the dietary guidelines ignore. And that's what has really set up the whole atmosphere for overeating. Because this type of diet really can drive hunger in so many people. And that's a lesson we've learned over and over again. And this just does the exact same thing. It has no impact on finding a dietary pattern that addresses your hunger, addresses your cravings, and makes it so that you can eat fewer calories in a healthy way to still maintain your lean muscle mass and lose fat mass and be happy with your food and maintain it long term. It just completely ignores that whole concept. And some of this seems to go against a commentary that Dr. Mazafarian wrote with Dr. Ludwig, published in JAMA back in 2010, where they talk about the harms of highly processed products marketed in which refined carbohydrates replace fat, providing an aura of healthiness but without actual benefits, and how healthy eating patterns should focus on whole or minimally processed foods and very few highly processed foods or sugary beverages. But yet, despite that, his ranking shows the minimally processed, naturally occurring foods like ground beef, like eggs, being lower than fruit juice, than being lower than cereal and sugary cereals. So that doesn't fit. So I could go on, but I want to stop this before it becomes too big of a rant, because I really think the problem is it's misleading and it's misrepresenting, and it's clearly biased. And I would love Dr. Mazafarian to come on so I can have a discussion with him. I want him to address each of these issues, and we can have an open conversation about what the rationale to explain all these, because for me it's really quite confusing. And I don't want to chalk it up to personal bias and influences and things like that, because I do have respect for Dr. Mazafarian. So I assume there's some reason, a deeper reason, how he can explain the way this is. But for now, I just really think we need to throw this out along with other bias and poor representation of specific food groups, and instead, of course, focus on whole dietary patterns that allow you to eat in a way that provides adequate nutrition, adequate protein, addresses your hunger and your cravings, allows you to enjoy your foods, allows you to improve your metabolic health, maintain your resting metabolic rate, and if you're looking to lose weight in a healthy way. And I don't think this food ranking does anything to address that. So if you have other opinions, please let us know. I'd love to hear people's opinions. If anybody sees the benefit of this type of food ranking and how it can actually help people, I'd like to hear that too, because I'm pretty surprised by it, and I'd like to see if there is some positive here that I'm missing. All right, that's it for today. Thanks, everybody. If this was helpful, click the thumbs up and subscribe button, and we'll see you next time here on Diet Doctor News on YouTube.